Welcome to the Aegance Offscript Podcast, where we talk to industry leaders who share their stories, insights, and lessons, unfiltered and unscripted. I'm your host, Lawrence, and today I'm thrilled to be joined by Ricky van der Walt, the Chief Growth Officer at Shapeshift Digital. Shapeshift is not your typical marketing agency. They combine creative, digital strategy, and deep operational system work, embedding automation, data, and process into the growth journeys of their clients. Ricky, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, Florence. Thanks for having me. And that was such a nice intro. Thank you. I feel like I want to work there. That sounds amazing.
I mean, I've only just really sort of scratched the surface in terms of positioning Shapeshift. Do you mind giving us a little bit more context around what it is that you guys do, area of operations, et cetera, et cetera?
I've got so many different ways of communicating what we do because it depends on who I'm speaking to. At the highest of level, I guess we use design and technology to help companies thrive. And part of that is building sustainable business. So diving into a corner of business, trying understand that, break it apart until you kind of dive into a different section of the business until you understand the whole business, and then through understanding the mechanics of that business and not just kind of doing a cookie cutter kind of approach for business in general, we really get emotionally embedded, and then we bring our toolkits. We've got such a nice range of toolkits that we've developed over the last 22 years, and then we help businesses grow.
And as the Chief Growth Officer, when you think about growth, what does that actually mean to you? I mean, beyond just revenue or headcount?
Yeah, I mean, the truth is this has been said so many times by so many different people that it feels like I'm repeating what everybody says. But the truth is, Shapeshift, the philosophy of the company anyway, is these incremental steps towards something better. And so that classic 1%, moving forward, continuous change and movement and embracing that. Growth for me is seeing those small steps, enjoying those small little wins and feeding off those to do the next. Growth for the company itself is being a catalyst for both really cool clients that wants to thrive and grow. I mean, that's a specific mindset that you're chasing. And then attracting the right talent to join the company to have that impact on those businesses. So for me, growth is seeing that evolution of our company happening over time. I've got amazing talent surrounding me to help me do cool stuff, and clients trusting me. Sometimes I'm amazed how clients trust me, where they just allow us to kind of give us the freedom to do the stuff that we do to help them, excel.
Now, Shapeshift has been around for 20 plus years, which is a substantial period of time. I mean, has that definition evolved as the company's matured and diversified?
Yeah. So we don't just tell people to change and adapt and embrace. We do it ourselves. When we started off in 2003, we were a print shop, really. I mean, we did basic, little designs and flyers and posters and all the stuff that you'd find in a Postnet, basically. We started off like that. A couple of years in, we dabbled with a few websites. 5 years into the company, we got again surprised. Old Mutual was like, "Yeah, cool, help us out." We were pitching with 4 of the biggest digital agencies at the time, 2 of the biggest ones in the UK and 2 of the biggest ones in South Africa. And for some reason, they said, "Yeah, you guys can go ahead." And this massive company said yes to this company that's like 5 years old in digital. And it was our approach. We came up with a very creative way of executing their digital presence, very modular kind of approach. They liked the thinking. So they said yes. And we ended up looking after them for 7-8 years, did 4 websites for them, and did their digital brand guidelines for the group. But since then, it's been websites, it's been branding, positioning, communication. Ultimately, what we're trying to do, and we're getting smarter at it, is connecting somebody that's got a value to somebody that's got a need. And I mean, that's the principle of marketing. So it's just connecting those 2 bits, and we've gotten smarter at going into the detail of how we go about it. Yeah. And it all starts by understanding the value, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so just on that Old Mutual relationship, it must have been quite an interesting process to get that door open to you. With all due respect, as you say, 5-year-old agency versus some of the biggest players, to even just get a seat at the table. Was that just down to persistence, constantly knocking on the door, or how did you find yourself in that position?
So I think it's what happens is, if you're just, this is going to sound pretty cheesy, but if you're just a good guy and you make sure that you are building relationships as you're growing, and you don't burn any bridges along the way, a lot of things happen. A lot of favorable things happen as you go. I think one of the reasons why were offered the opportunity to actually do the work is a lot of these big agencies, and I'm kind of glad I didn't mention their names, they were pretty cocky. They walked in minutes late, 15, 20 minutes late into a meeting pitching for work in suits and suitcases. I walked in with shorts, flip-flops, and a straw hat from Old Cocky. So there was this like very raw, unmasked kind of approach to what we were doing. And we were very hungry. I mean, we spent weeks putting a pitch together where these guys rock up minutes late for a meeting that was going to change our business, but for them, it was just another client. And I think the reason why we got it was because we were hungry. Yeah.
Got you. So Shapeshift operates at the intersection of creative strategy and technology. How do you make those worlds work together rather than pull in different directions?
Yeah, I think if you're aligned at the same mindset at its core, which is growth, and then attracting the right talent and making them understand that they're bringing a value aspect to the delivery. And, a lot of times you'll find in businesses when two people have the same role, there's a little bit of friction that happens. And we try to kill egos very early at Shapeshift. We don't like people coming in. I once had a guy work here for 4 hours, I think it was. Yeah. So hired, paid, everything contracted. Within 4 hours, I took him for a coffee and I said, I don't think this is the right place for you. So egos is not something that we entertain at all. And that actually goes the same for our clients. When I walk into a meeting and I meet somebody, I might have a great meeting. We'll finish off with a coffee, but I'll know if it's a client I want to work with or don't want to work with. And in my view, and we haven't gone into that question, I don't know if we will, but my idea of success is being able to say no to a customer. Being able to walk away from a customer is my idea of a successful company. That you don't have to do it just for the sake of, paying salaries. I want to be able to say no.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, let's dive into that concept in a little bit more detail. I think you're spot on. It certainly resonates with the majority of my professional career is spent in B2B sales, and you're often so desperate to close the deal that you will overlook, a client being late to meetings, not replying to you, just, but as you say, not necessarily being a nice person, but you are so desperate for it. And the sort of big aha moment that I had in my career was when, as you say, a sales manager, one of my sales managers said to me, don't be afraid to walk away from a deal. It's an interesting balance because you're desperate to close the deals to avoid, getting on the radar of your directors. You want to hit target, et cetera, et cetera. But that sort of change in mindset suddenly started to open up a lot more doors for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, we've both been in sales for a big part of our lives. And I think we know that desperation really doesn't smell very good, But when you're young, you're eager to prove yourself. So you do things that you're not, grovel. And I think in the beginning of the company, like it's different. When you're working for somebody, it's a different kind of vibe, right? You work for somebody, you've got targets, you've got KPIs, you have to hit them. So it's very different. When you work for yourself, you're only going to see the outcome on what you put in. So it's this like, there's this never off kind of like experience, I've done some of my best work where I've gone to the gym and on my way out, I meet somebody and then he becomes my third biggest client, or I'm at a braai and the company's having changes and then they end up, completely changing the way the company's structured and hand over 7 servers to me and say, please look after my clients because we're actually shutting down our digital department. Good things happen when you're out there. I think a lot of times sales guys, when they're caught up in business, they've got these, especially structured corporate business, they've got these very strict regulation around how they're supposed to perform. And a lot of lost opportunities happen when you're not allowed to be the free self that made you want to do sales in the first place. But then you need the right mindset, right? So then you have to hire the person that wants to do that naturally and not have to be told, okay, where's that next client? Where you need to find the right people. And I think that's probably the biggest challenge. I mean, the biggest challenge in growing a business is just finding the right people. May that be clients or people that join the team to help you fight the fight, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking about growth and scaling, I mean, as we've established, your work spans across, brand strategy to automation. So as you've scaled, how have you managed to keep delivery quality consistent without sort of every project becoming a custom build?
Yeah, the downfall of my success. Absolutely. I'm way too bespoke. Like every time I meet a client, I treat it like a fresh fingerprint. So we go in and we spend time. And actually, over time, it's gotten even better, not for me, but for my clients. Because I've stabilized cash flow and I've got a lot of my clients on retainers and stuff. I've got the luxury of being able to walk into a company, dig in, understand the mechanics of the business, do pilots and POCs, and I can do those things now because I can afford to do it. But when I was young, I needed to pay everybody. There was no time to spend on POCs, so the pitch was a lot tougher. I had to go in and actually get the client to pay me before I even do the embedding. Like getting in and understanding the nuances of the business. So yes, unfortunately, everything is very bespoke. Fortunately for my client, unfortunately for my cash flow. But the benefit is you build this very long relationship. So I've got clients that's been with me for 13 years, 17 years. Um, we get we get close, become friends. We hang out. We go to whiskey tastings and do cooking classes together. So I spend the time to build relationships. I'm not an off the shelf kind of business. I don't want to be off the shelf business. I find it way too much work to try and win a new client, consistently. And my aim is for clients to be super happy and tell their buddies. So if I can spend the time to really understand the business, really deliver value in that business, um, it's in the results. My clients are having better lives. They have more time on their hands. Their friends ask, "What are you doing in your company?" And then he says, "Phone Ricky. He's gonna be able to take you through the journey." So we've been very lucky in that sense.
So what I found, and certainly some of the conversations I've had, is that many agencies sort of hit a capacity ceiling, as we've established, maybe too much bespoke work and not enough leverage. I mean, how do you think about scaling sustainably? I know that you're a little bit down the road and you've maybe already crossed that sustainable scaling challenge. Maybe give us some insights into that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think this is also something that's quite natural with most like digital businesses, if you like. You end up building a lot of solutions for businesses. I mean, I've got solutions that I've done for property compliance businesses. I've got hospitality, automotive industry. Yeah, the range goes on and on. We're not very industry specific. I actually enjoy the challenge, and my team enjoys the challenge. So when somebody comes through the door and goes, as an example, one of our clients is in hospitality, and he's got about 300 resorts on the grounds, and he wanted a way to monitor all the movement of laundry across the resort. Now, that's not typically what you would look for when you're looking for a marketing company. Like they're not looking for a website. They're looking for a proper business solution. And all this needs to be tallied up and structured and injected into some accounting software so people can invoice and have itemized billing on what pillowcase was washed in what room and who moved that from point A to B. And then that's the kind of thing we jump at because we just love being challenged. So what ended up happening was a lot of these tools became tools that we would see a lot of clients needed. And we started productizing some of these tools. And so yeah, that's the natural progression of digital. You do some digital stuff, you build some cool solutions, you see there's this replicatable solution for markets, and then you turn that into a product. And we've got about 5 or 6 products that people use to run their operations. Yeah.
And in terms of scalability, how do you measure that? Is it revenue per head? Is it delivery speed, or is it client satisfaction, or is it maybe just a combination of everything?
So I'll drill a little bit down. So things that make me go, I think we've done a good job, is when tools are made super simple and easy to use. So when the onboarding experience almost doesn't require any training. You deploy a solution within an organization, people start using it prior to even getting to training day, and you skip training day because everybody's happy with what they've got. Happiness for me, or success for me, is walking into a business and seeing 12 computer screens all with a piece of software that we wrote, and they're running their day-to-day operations on software that we actually helped build with them, you know. Um, Good matches, though, when people are really good in their industry, and we've got the skill sets in design and technology to elevate their understanding in the industry. And when those things come together, you end up building really cool stuff that people use. We're not going to just pull something off a shelf and deploy it. We want to build stuff that people use, but success for me is building stuff that people use.
Yeah, it makes complete sense.
And it sounds very simple, but it's true. Like it needs to be that. An example of that: we got a WordPress site that somebody was managing, and what ended up happening is they were losing a lot of deals and things were falling apart. So they came to us and they said, "Can you please run us a campaign?" We said, "We will not be able to run that campaign for you because the site is an absolute mess." And they had something like 54, 53 plugins built into this WordPress, and the thing was hanging on a string, on a thread. We took that whole thing, rebuilt the entire system, and by launching into the next season, we increased the sales with 93.6%. And it was just by simplifying the buying journey, and it was by simplifying the communication between the business. When you build easy to use things, people just use it. And I think the reason why a lot of these big digital institutions or strategic firms fail is because they have conversations at C-suite level and they forget to actually speak to the people that's going to use the system. Mm-hmm. And we go the other way around. I go down to the ground with my team. We go speak to the sales guy, the car guard, the lady that's collecting the laundry and moving it to point B. I want to understand how they work day to day. And everybody in the company has that curious mindset.
Absolutely. I mean, I suppose the last thing you want is to be building for building's sake and to not have the product being used, right?
It's demotivating because the whole team will be so like deflated if you're spending all this time and effort into things and then nobody gets to enjoy it or nobody appreciates what you've created. And I think the reason why we have that good energy is because every time we deliver, we see the outcome. It gives us that nos that allows us to do the next one and the next one. And it's this continuous movement of, when you see something come to fruition, it gives the whole team a lot of joy. And then you want to do better next time. You know, it's just a good environment, man. When you create a good environment, people want to do their best.
So, Ricky, let's talk a little bit about growth on the commercial side. I mean, what's working best right now in terms of how you're acquiring new clients?
I could be more aggressive there, to be honest with you, Lawrence. I'm continuously told I'm a little bit too relaxed when it comes to acquiring new clients. I think it's also like having been in sales from the age of 9. I'm slightly more reserved these days and a little bit more picky. So, I mean, I met a guy. I've got some work that I'm doing abroad, and I met a guy on the plane the other day, and then I go and see that guy. Or I've got I'm standing somewhere in a Woolworths, and a guy walking to a dude, and he's like, "Hey, we spoke 11 years ago. We should really have that coffee now." I'm actually going to see him at 11. So I could be more aggressive in getting our value out there. But I kind of like the natural organic growth that we're going through at the moment. Being able to be a little bit more selective and really digging in and doing cool stuff that matters. You know, I don't want to be you get to those agencies where people are panicking. Everybody's running in different directions, and this client's shouting because this thing hasn't been delivered, etc. That anxiety that comes from those environments is just, it's not a healthy way to live. And because you spend so much time at work, I don't want to create an environment where the people that are around me have that kind of anxiety on a day-to-day basis. People need to want to come to work. If we can do that, if we can keep doing that, I think we're okay, you know? And I think it's that, I think Warren Buffett mentioned something about just keep delighting your clients. So we just keep delighting our clients, and they'll keep sending us people that are like-minded, and that's what
Mm.
I'm after. If anybody could solve that Rubik's for me, it would be, can you just find me more cool clients, like lacquer clients,
Yeah.
then I'd be super happy. But also I can't just have 10 clients come through my door at once. I wouldn't be able to handle that. I wouldn't say no to it. I'd say I'd love that so I can pick the one I want to work with. Don't get me wrong. But at the moment, I'm pretty selective. And
Mm.
yeah, I think the one thing where I can ramp up is probably my products. I could sell more products. It's very cookie cutter in the sense that businesses, because we've already formulated the process, it could help a lot of businesses that's been falling around in distribution to take something that's really works, because we've worked with really large companies in distribution, and we've worked out a lot of mechanics on what is the ideal kind of flow that it would help a lot of independent sub distribution companies, without sounding like I'm plugging the product, but yes, yeah.
Yeah, makes complete sense. I suppose the last thing you want is for a situation to develop where the tail wags the dog, because that often does occur in sort of the larger agencies where clients become very needy and expect responses, results, action immediately.
I must say, Lawrence, the kind of relationship that I have with some of my clients, I'll give you one example. I was sitting in a meeting with a client, and he'd been paying me a retainer for 9 years or something. And I sat with him and I said, you know what? I'd really like you. We've been working a while together now, and I'd really like you to like 10x your retainer, because I want to show you what I can actually do. And he said, well, tell me what you're going to do for it. And I said, I'm going to make you more money. And he said, can you put that in an email? And I literally went back to my office and I wrote an email and I said, I need this amount of money so I can make you more money. And his response to the email was, go ahead. And I have a few of those kind of stories where clients are just like so casual in giving us the opportunity to actually help them scale. But it comes with 9 years of proving myself and the team, developing and delivering great stuff for the client to trust us and give us the opportunity to do things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's a fantastic story. Was there ever a moment in your head where you're like, I could have positioned this 4 years ago?
I think we all kind of learn as we go that when you're young, you want to quote somebody something and you're like, no, there's no way they're going to pay this. And then you don't, because you don't believe that they will, right? And then a couple of years later, people are paying 5 times that. And you go, I can't believe I didn't do this 4 years ago, 100%. I think that a lot of times we're in disbelief. I think that's one of the trickiest things in B2B, is to kind of land it at the right price point. So you don't go too high, too low. It's a sweet spot that you need to hit based on your understanding of the person that you're dealing with.
Mm.
So, and that comes with a lot of experience, and you can only get that over years, right? So when you're young, you can't gauge that. It's very difficult to gauge. But I'm sure you're there. You look like the kind of guy that's there.
We're there, but you're absolutely right. It is a bit of a moment of uncertainty when you are having that discussion with a prospect around, I can prove the value that I'll return to you, and this is what it's going to cost you. There's always sort of a bit of a pause. And, that's when your mind is racing, thinking, were we too high? Were we too low? Did we nail it? And yeah, I mean, oftentimes we do get it right, which is great, but there are obviously instances where we don't.
I think one of the things that's happened over time is, before we would pitch on a value, our expected value to return value. And now it's a case of understanding their biggest pain points. So really getting into the conversation and understanding the business and where you can unlock value. Because when you're exchanging value, it's a lot easier to pitch, right? So you come to me and say, well, if this could happen, then these things could happen, and therefore my bottom line could do this. And that kind of gives you the hint at what a good financial point would be to start on, because you've got something to gauge against. But when you're a rookie and we're falling in through the door and we're trying to say, give us money so we can make you more money, it's a bit loose. It's a bit airy-fairy, a bit dream horizon sketching. And Yeah, good luck if you're 20 in your 20s. No businessman is going to say, "Cool, here's some cash," you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I suppose it's how you phrase it, how you structure your contribution to their business, and then it becomes an exchange, not a request for cash. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, as you rightfully say, that comes with experience. You eventually start to figure out how to position your solution or your services at the right levels, firstly, and how you talk to those levels is very different to how you're talking to someone who's going to be implementing your product or your services as well. Because the cash sits at the top, the keys to the bank sit at the top, and that's really where you need to be having your conversations. But as I think, as you've shown as well, understanding how the product is going to be implemented and building those relationships, sort of layers down, is crucial to retaining clients. And oftentimes retention is a lot harder than acquisition. I mean, how you've mentioned that you have a number of retainer clients. I mean, how do you approach keeping clients at Shapeshift?
Yeah, so that is the challenge. But I'm happy to say that it's where you place your focus, right? So you can hear my focus is clearly not in acquisition. I wish it was a little bit more, but it's not. And it's not something I can change. Like, this is just who I've become. I'm more interested in retaining customers than I am in winning new customers. And so the success of our retention is because everybody here's got that mindset. I mean, my one of the ladies that work in my office, she'll pick up a phone call on a Saturday morning, directly to her cell phone, and help somebody set up an email, and be happy to help because the client needed it. And when you have that mindset of like being contributive, being curious and contributive, and then grateful for the opportunity to be part of somebody's success. Like seeing that company scale and grow, it's awesome to be part of that journey with them. Especially if you've done it before and you've seen what 13 years can do. The next client you get, you're Afrikaans nuuskierig. You want to see what that outcome is going to look like when they take their very good business, healthy business, and drive up the success of that business with design and technology. I mean, really, I sell it because I love it. I love selling design and technology into business because I know what it can unlock.
Ricky, if we look 3 to 5 years into the future, what sort of company do you want Shapeshift to become?
Yeah, I'll tell you, that's one of the toughest questions. I've seen Shapeshift adapt so many times in the last 22 years. Every time something changes in the market, we adapt. I mean, I think we've gone through 3 financial crises and COVID. And every time you think you know what you're going to do, and then you do something completely different. The reason why we ended up adapting to do automation and business process design and, well, digital transformation, if you like, is because we were a full-blown marketing company, what is it, 13, 15 years ago. And we realized that all this Squarespace and Wix and WordPress and all these template-styled sites, there was no way that I was going to be able to keep my team going, selling, off-the-shelf sites. It's just there's not enough margin in that game. So unless you're actually, I mean, it's the classic case of like you get value for giving value, right? Solving the biggest problem gives you the most cash, blah, blah, blah. So we needed to adapt. And we went from this marketing communications company, which we're pretty good at. I mean, we're still pretty good at it. We moved into how do we automate business process so that we can add real value, tangible value into the business. It's difficult to measure value on a picture, a pretty logo and some ads on social media. You can measure it to a certain degree, but it doesn't have that hard-hitting value like a bottom line, kind of like, I'll give you an example. For the financial compliance company that we helped, we took 5 different systems that they were running to run their operations. And we built a singular system that swallowed in all those licensing fees into one system. Now, that's a real bottom line value. You can look at it and go, cool, this is what I was paying a month. This is what I'm paying a month now. I am saving money, therefore I am making money. And so at default, Shapeshift will always be a company that is helping either with communication to open up the opportunity to help operationally, or coming through operational and saying, now that your company is actually working well, let's tell the world. So in that sense, nothing will change. How we do that might change. AI is coming through the door. The fad might go, it might stay, the use of it, the use cases. I mean, everything's going to change. It's always going to change. It's embracing that, being excited about facing that. I just don't want to change the fundamentals of how we go about solving business or helping businesses grow.
And so you talk about automating business processes and working with your clients around instituting automation. In terms of within Shapeshift, I mean, are you utilizing automation? Are you leaning into AI now that it's sort of a bit of a buzz at the moment? Have you explored that at all?
Yes, yeah, no. I mean, we'd be silly not to. We've been at it in the background. I think like a lot of times people put that forward because they layer words into pitches to win work, and I'm still like I'm very very Afrikaans stubborn in that way. Like I don't want to go into a conversation and throw AI at a very basic algorithm that spits out some response of a database that's got a point allocation to value. Like I don't want to just loosely use the word AI. We built a tool 5-6 years ago that was a skin diagnostic tool for a cosmetics company. And this thing was amazing. Like all other fragrance or cosmetic companies were using classic marketing results, right? You go put in anything and it's going to spit out, these are the products you should buy. So there was no intelligence built into it. And we went and built this very intelligent piece of software that gave you exactly your daily routine based on the answers that you gave us. And it was a simple 10 question set questionnaire. Before the campaign even went live, we had over 6,000 submissions on this diagnostic tool. Not because they were promoting it, but because the SEO on the page that we built wasn't too bad. So people went there to do diagnostics on themselves. And we've built a couple of those kind of tools over the years, where we build tools where we want to extract insights from the user. So I can only really give you a proper response if I understand you. It's a difficult thing to do with technology. It's an easy thing to do in a conversation. How do I mimic a human interaction in technology to get that extraction? And sorry, I'm veering off the point here, and I'll get back to your question now. But I think the future is going to be the thing that's going to separate in our industry company from company will be the way that you extract information from the user. So how do you make it so somebody wants to give you another boring MailChimp form, or how do you create a journey that is staggered between technology and human to get the best information out of a user to give them the best result? There, I think you're going to see what separates the good from the great.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's certainly a shift in the mindset or the approach towards artificial intelligence. 3, 4, 5 months ago, there was a bit of fear around, AI will replace us. But I think that narrative has certainly shifted now, where it's, looking at AI as a way to augment and to make us more efficient, and deliver more. And as you say, extract more so that you can deliver a better product.
Yeah, I think a lot of my conversations with clients that want AI, I generally lead them to internalizing their intelligence so that they can work that intelligence to where they're at a happy enough state where there's like a 90+% accuracy in the response before you open up to a public player. So to your point, how do you equip the business to give them internal intelligence where they can refine that intelligence? It's like raising a child. You need to inform this child. You can't just pull some AI off the shelf and go, here's our AI. I mean, whoa, I have seen some really bad application of that. And so if you really want to do it properly, then you should apply the same stringent mindset to everything you're doing in your life, in your business, in your skill sets. You should have that same kind of deep focus when it comes to educating your AI. It just to add AI for the sake of saying we play in AI I mean, you've probably come across that a few times. You've met a client, they say, no, we're already playing in AI. We're already doing AI. And you're like, okay, well, show me your AI. I once went to a guy's website and the AI bot in the bottom of the site, I asked that bot, can you tell me more about this company? The actual domain that I was on. So I said, this domain, can you tell me more about this domain? In the bot, in the domain. And it said, I don't know what you're talking about. So it's just shocking how people are applying it. And I think that's frustrating. And I mean, I've heard about people leaving very big healthcare institutions, which we don't need to name, because of how bad those bots are run. That you couldn't get to a human, and the responses was just like, I do not compute, like.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great example. The sort of healthcare practitioner example where, you just need to speak to a human, and the layers of bots that you need to get through before you can find an email or a number to call is infuriating. So I think there's definitely some work to be done around ensuring that the right type of artificial intelligence is deployed, into a business. And that comes with, as we've discussed, this entire conversation around understanding pain points, strategy, direction, and really sort of getting into the nitty-gritty inner workings. Artificial intelligence needs to be dealt with in exactly the same light.
I also think that, and I get the sense that you have a very similar kind of approach, is you're not going to just throw AI for the sake of throwing AI. So you go into a business, you understand, because at the highest level, Lawrence, you're a strategist. So you walk into a company, you understand. And once you understand, you go, these are the different applications that we can look at to kind of accelerate your company's growth and build a business that is more sustainable. Ultimately, if we have stronger legs, we're going to survive when the markets change. So we just want to create sustainability in our business. And if there is a use case for AI to help that objective work, then we do it. But we're not just going to plug AI in because it's better. It most likely won't. You first need to your base and the mechanics of your business, and then optimize that before something that's going to accelerate for you or take it further.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And on that note, Ricky, if any of our listeners or viewers want to get hold of you, connect with you, Shapeshift, the sort of broader team, where's the best place for them to do that?
Yeah, the best place is find me on LinkedIn, man. Find me on LinkedIn, Ricky van der Walt, and drop me a connect. I generally speak to everybody that speaks to me on LinkedIn. That's the only place on social that I'm aggressively growing. The rest of it is a waste of time.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. It really has been an interesting conversation, obviously diving into the early days of the company and, the sort of growth and the challenges that you've experienced along the way. Thanks for all the insights that you've given as well. Really look forward to seeing what happens next with the company.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, and thanks for the conversation, Lawrence. Yeah.
That's it for today's episode of the Aegance Offscript Podcast. If this conversation sparked something, a thought, a question, or a new way of seeing your own business, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment down below. We'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.